Hey guys, it's Jen. This is another episode of Reframing Me, and I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Brubaker. Welcome back to the show. I am so happy to have you here today. If you are new, welcome. I'm very grateful that you have joined us. I thought that we could have a conversation today about something that is kind of going on in my home and in my family. And I know that it is going on in a lot of y'all's family too. Although I will say that for some reason, I am having a bit of a disconnect with this. Like, for some reason, it's almost like I have to keep reminding myself that this is going on, that this is happening. It's like I'm shutting it off for some reason. And I don't quite understand it because so, anyways, don't mean to be crazy and vague here, but today I thought we could talk about college applications. So, and I don't know, 2 years ago when we did this with my oldest, it was a huge deal. And I know that next year when we do this with my youngest, it will be a huge deal again. But I don't know if it's because it's my middle and he is just like the easiest, most chill kid you will find, or if it's because I just did it and I know I'm going to do it again. And for some reason, I'm kind of like, pushing this one away and like having this disconnect. But there is a huge disjoint between me and this college application process for some reason that I cannot wrap my head around. I mean, I have been reading his essays. I have been answering questions when he's filling out his Common App. So I'm not like I'm not involved in the process, but for some reason, it's like I'm disassociating from this really happening. So I thought we should have a conversation about it today because not only is it relevant to high school seniors like our family, but also to upcoming high school seniors like how my daughter is going to be a senior next year. And for good measure, I thought we could talk a little bit about some things that might interest our college parents as well. Look at me covering all ends of the spectrum here. But, you know, I hear things time and again. I have been a lifelong academic. We're talking over 25 years in academia. I have heard it all. And I have heard it from students. I have heard it from other parents. I have heard it from my own kids. I have heard them from my kids' friends. There are so many misconceptions, I think, that kind of float around out there and things that we aren't quite sure about. So I thought that we could go through some of those, I guess, myths of higher ed that I think are pretty important because, right now there's that like bit of a stress that just kind of looms over senior year, right? Or even I know junior year sometimes because junior year really grades are so important junior year. And I know a lot of my daughter's peers are already talking about college and even going to visit colleges. Um, for us, we're kind of let's kick that can down the curb. Let's wait till senior year. Maybe we're procrastinators. Probably we are. Probably just not willing to accept it in advance is probably the most realistic answer there. But so upcoming high school seniors as well as current high school seniors. And like I said, we're going to talk about some myths that kind of carry over into college as well. But right now, we're in college application season. The deadline is looming. Campus visits are going on. Essays are being written. There's like a low level hum of stress, right? And so, with that comes some things that maybe you've heard, maybe you've even said. But things that I oftentimes, as a lifelong academic, have heard. You need to pick a profitable major. Ooh, profitable major. That's one that, as a comm studies person, is a personal favorite. Yes. Number two, a minor doesn't really matter. Ooh, as the coordinator of the journalism minor program, that one also gets me. The important thing is getting into a good school. Good school. Good school. That is such a subjective term. And so I thought we could go through that one a little bit. And then also the complaints that I often hear from people about general education courses, like the required courses. Gen eds are just a waste of time. So I thought that those might be good jumping off points for us because those kinds of comments, they're not just things that I hear, they're everywhere. Media articles, social media posts, advice from well intentioned, I'd hope, well intentioned family and friends. And on the surface, they sound kind of logical. But the problem is they all come out of the same false belief because the overall fallacy of higher education, the biggest misunderstanding that I see time and again is that college is supposed to be job training, and it isn't. Higher education is not a 4-year vocational program. It is not designed to train students for a specific job. That is what certifications are for and apprenticeships are for. And those are incredibly valuable paths. But college is education. It's meant to expand a student's mind. It's intended to expose them to new ideas. It is supposed to teach them how to think critically and how to adapt to changing situations. So, in today's episode, I want to take that big old fallacy and break it down into 4 of the more common myths that I hear and see. That majors should be chosen for profitability, that minors, they don't matter, no one cares, that the best schools are the most prestigious schools, and that gen eds are a waste of time. And then I kind of want to reframe it all with you because that's my thing, so that you can have a clearer, maybe more calm voice, maybe more supportive voice as you help your own children navigate this very stressful, yet very exciting and all around overwhelming process. Okay, so let's start with the one that I think I see the most and I think I hear the most, and that is that you need to pick a profitable major. If you have spent time online, you probably see the charts. The top 10 majors with the highest earning potential, or the worst majors for return on investment, the degrees that lead nowhere. These ridiculous lists circulate every fall just in time for students to declare majors and for anxious parents to make very nervous students as they scroll through them, either feeling a sense of relief, like, phew, I'm so glad you chose that one, or panic, oh my God, what are you going to do with that degree? I understand the fear behind it. I totally get it. College is expensive. The world is expensive. Life is expensive. You want your child to have stability. You want them to be able to support themselves, to avoid debt. It is very natural to think if they pick the right major, then the money will follow. And those lists, they just feed right into that. But here's the problem. Those lists, they reduce education to a dollar sign. They make it look like your child's major is the same thing as their job title will be. And it is absolutely not. The reality is that most people don't even end up working in a job directly tied to their undergraduate major. People pivot. They take the skills that they learned and then they apply them in often unexpected ways. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that today's young adults will hold around a dozen jobs before they're 50. No single major can predict and prepare for all of that. And that is where we have to go back to our theory, right? Because if education were only about training you for one specific job, then yes, maybe profitability charts would make sense. But that's not what higher ed is. Higher education is about building skills that are transferable. It's about cultivating adaptability, cultivating critical thinking and problem solving and communication, skills that let you grow and pivot no matter where your career takes you. So, we're going to use communication studies as an example because it is my field, and I cannot tell you how many times over the last 2.5 decades I have heard someone dismiss comm studies. Isn't that just public speaking? Don't we all know how to communicate? So easy because I communicate all the time. Yes, sure. We all communicate. But that's like saying we all breathe, so why study biology? Everyone communicates. But Lord, everyone does not communicate well, do they? And the difference between mediocre communication and excellent communication can make or break a career. So, comm studies doesn't just teach you how to speak, it teaches you how humans connect, how our media shapes our society, how organizations, all organizations pretty much, how they function, how conflicts, whether they are within organizations or within the media or within our government or within our families, how they get managed, how persuasion works, media literacy. These are not narrow job skills. They're life skills. Yes, they are soft skills, but they are also valuable skills. And they open doors into public relations and marketing and law and health communication and education and politics and corporate leadership and entrepreneurship. And I could go on and on and on. But here's what those return on investment lists don't show you. The communication graduate who maybe starts in an entry-level PR role and goes on to found her own firm. Or the philosophy major who pivots into tech ethics and then builds a career that no one even saw coming. Or the English major who turns a love of storytelling into a career in journalism or in law. And also, it doesn't show you the flip side of it either. The computer science major who realizes 3 years in that he hates coding. The finance graduate who feels trapped in a field that never really fit his personality. A profitable major that is on paper doesn't always lead to a profitable or definitely a fulfilling career in reality. So, when you, as a parent, when you talk to your child about majors, resist the urge to make profitability the top criteria. Instead, ask, what skills will this major build? How adaptable, what skills will this major build? How adaptable will it make you? How much will you enjoy the process of learning it? Because at the end of the day, the most profitable thing that your child can do is not to choose the highest paying major. It's to learn how to think, how to adapt, how to communicate, and how to keep growing, no matter what the job market may look like in 10 years. And the second misconception that I hear constantly, and I heard this from my own child from an advisor that he saw at my own university. And of course, I had to go into my little spiel about this, my soapbox, so much so that we were at a soccer game the other night. And he called me over and he's like, can you tell her why it's good for her to have a minor? And so, of course, I had to jump up onto my soapbox again. But I get it. People say things like students are stretched thin. Parents are worried about costs. We just kind of want to get them out of college. It's easy to see a minor as being extra, like something you just kind of tack on. But I am the coordinator for our journalism minor program, and I have done so for like the last 18 years. And I can tell you that it is such a valuable addition to add on to a major. A major gives your child a foundation, but a minor, it gives them that little bit extra edge. It's like saying, I am not just this, I am also that. So, I mean, think about it. A comm major with a minor in psychology, suddenly it's like they're not just learning how people interact, but why they do what they do. And if that student walks into a counseling program or a leadership role or an interview, they have double the insight. Or that comm major with a minor in business can talk about messaging and about markets. With a minor in environmental studies, they're perfectly positioned for jobs in sustainability or in climate advocacy. Even those minors that might be more unexpected can totally pay off. Political science major with a film studies minor might end up in political advertising. They might be able to bring storytelling skills that set them apart into what they walk into. A biology major might have a dance minor. Who knows? They might go into physical therapy and have like a totally unique understanding of movement. We know from an organizational and communication research standpoint that innovation often happens at the intersections where two totally different areas of knowledge meet. A minor gives students like a second lens, a second language, a different way to look at things, to connect the dots that other people who are more single faceted might miss. And it's not just about being employable. Sometimes minors can just be about joy. Maybe a student adds art history because they love it, or Spanish because it connects to their heritage, or theater because performing makes them feel alive. And maybe that love of performing can translate into presenting down the road. Or maybe that yoga minor that seems silly and seems frivolous will actually help their mental health and maybe even help them help their colleagues' mental health down the road. Do they always map directly onto a career? Maybe not, possibly not. But do they make the student a much more interesting and curious and well rounded human being? Absolutely. So, when your child talks about adding a minor, don't dismiss it like my son's advisor did. Instead of saying that won't matter, try asking them, how can that minor make you different? How can it make you expand your options or give you a new way to see the world? Because in the end, a minor, it's not just a line that someone may or may not look at on a transcript. It's a signal that your child is curious, that they're interdisciplinary, and that they are willing to dive deeper into something that, you know what, they may not even get, quote, credit for down the road. And in a job market and in a world that rewards adaptability and awards perspective, that is no small thing. And the third misconception that I hear, especially right now as application deadlines loom, is that you need to get into a good school, or this will look good when I apply to a good school, or this will help me get into a good school. And when people say that, I can almost like hear that somehow there are capital letters on good and school, meaning like it has to be a highly ranked or a highly selective school with a name that makes people nod approvingly when you like put that sticker on the back of your car. But let's stop and ask for a second something that I like to remind people. What does good really mean? Because that sounds pretty darn subjective, right? Does it mean the school is in like the top 25 on a US News and World Report list? Does it mean it has a lower acceptance rate than your neighbor's kid's school? Does it mean it's expensive? And so therefore it must be good, right? I want to push back on this myth because it can put enormous pressure that is totally unnecessary on families and on our kids. The idea of a quote unquote good school, it often distracts from the thing that actually matters, and that's, is this school a good fit? In my years as a professor, I have had students transfer from prestigious universities because they were miserable. They were lost in huge lecture halls, or they were overwhelmed by competition, or they got there and just realized that they didn't fit, or they didn't find their people. And I've also known of students thrive at less flashy schools because they found their mentors, or they got opportunities to lead, or found their niche, discovered passions that set their hearts on fire. And at the end of the day, employers aren't combing through resumes looking only for like Ivy League stamps of approval. They're looking at skills, experiences, evidence of growth. And a degree from a brand name type university can totally be valuable. But it, like a major, isn't a guarantee of future success or happiness. So, if you are a parent who is guiding your child through this process, I would suggest, instead of asking, is this a good school? Maybe instead ask, is this a good school for my child? Because those three little words, that prepositional phrase there, for my child, on the end of that can change everything. So, what actually matters? You're like, this doesn't matter, Jen, but maybe you could tell us what actually matters. All right. So, I do, as luck would have it, have a little list here. So, the things that I personally think are the most important things for our kids and for us to consider when we're looking at colleges. And first, is it a fit with the student's personality and their learning style? Does your child thrive in big crowds, or do they kind of get lost? Do they love like the buzz of a large university, or do they need the smaller, more personal environment of a liberal arts college? Some kids, they want independence. They want anonymity to just kind of blend into the 300-person lecture hall. Others, they need professors who know their names. Neither one is right or wrong. It is all about fit. I have taught at three universities. Have I taught at three universities? I've taught at four universities. Oh my goodness, I'm just realizing I have taught at four universities over my career. I taught at Ohio State when it was about 100,000 student university. and I taught at Kent State University and the University of Toledo's. Both were mid-sized universities. And then now, obviously, I teach at UNCW, which when I got here almost 20 years ago, we were, I wouldn't guess, at probably about 13,000 students, and now we're at about 19,000 students. So I guess the only thing that I personally don't have represented, because I also attended Ohio State when it was like, I mean, it still is, but it was a giant university. So I have experience teaching at all of them. At Ohio State, I was both a student and then in grad school, I was a teaching assistant. So I taught the lab sections of a course for a large lecture for a professor. And then when I taught at both Toledo and at Kent State, I taught similar courses to the size that I teach now. So about 25 to 30 students in a class. And in my graduate program that I teach in, I teach sections are closer to about 12 to 15 because they're graduate students. And so there are different styles of teaching that go along with different size classes. And those different size classes oftentimes go along with different size universities. And none of it is right or wrong. It is all just about fit. And so that's something that really has to be considered when you are watching your child apply to a really large university or a really small university or a mid-sized university, trying to determine what is going to fit their personality best. The second thing, faculty support and mentorship. And that can kind of tie into that first one as well, because this is something that rankings totally can't measure. Will your child have access to professors who care about teaching undergraduates? Because the reality is that a lot of schools, especially if they're R1 institutions, which means they are heavy research institutions, are highly invested in research over teaching. And so that is where the professors' primary responsibility lies is in research. Whereas if you have a more teaching institution, then there will most likely be more relationship and more contact between professors and students. So will they have chances to be mentored or to join research projects or to get recommendation letters? A less prestigious school where professors are invested in their students might offer more growth opportunities than a big name campus where undergrads struggle to get noticed and maybe they're being taught more by teaching assistants. And number three, are there opportunities for involvement? Because college is way more than just classes. It is internships and leadership roles, study abroad, research, student organizations. So ask, will my child have access to those opportunities? Because sometimes smaller schools actually offer more because there's less competition for slots. Number four, location and culture. Can your child picture themselves living there for 4 years? I know that when we toured schools, that was the big question that I had. I'm like, if I were to drop you off here and leave you, how would you feel being here? Can you picture yourself living here day in and day out? So, what's the vibe? Is it urban? Is it suburban? Is it kind of rural or in the middle of nowhere? What's the distance from a city? Do they like the distance that it is? Do they want to be in a city? Do they want to be near a city? Do they want to be in the mountains or near the beach? What is it that they are looking for? Is it a commuter campus or is it much more residential? Meaning, do students stay on campus on the weekends or do they go home on the weekends? Is the culture more collaborative or is it pretty cutthroat? Is it very competitive for slots and things? Because that's going to influence the culture of the schools. And these factors often matter more than a ranking does because this is directly going to impact how your child feels about being on that campus. Is Greek life important to your child? If it is or if it isn't, you need to know how predominant Greek life is on that campus. Number 5, financial fit. And this is huge because I know that there are a lot of families out there who sacrifice financial security to go to a particular school. If a child Because you really do have to negotiate the balance. If a school leaves your child with crushing debt, that quote, good school might not be so good at all. If a school leaves you with crushing debt, maybe that's not such a good choice at all. Similarly, their happiness, can they be happy only at this one particular school? Or are there other schools that they would be just as happy at that don't cost quite as much? I know that my middle is also considering going to UNCW. I think he just likes the school a lot. He likes the culture. I think he's gotten to see a lot of it. Similarly, the location or proximity, I guess it is, from home. That is something totally to take into consideration because if it's a person who wants to be home fairly regularly, they can't do that if it's a flight away. Or even think about the round trip driving distance. If they are very independent and want to completely be on their own, and maybe knowing your family and knowing the relationship, maybe they have to be a certain distance away from home in order to establish those boundaries that they need to have. It's going to be different for each family and each child, but it is important to consider as you're going forward. Similarly, financial fit. Huge. This one is huge because I know that there are many families who sacrifice financial security to chase prestige or to chase a particular school that's the only one that will make their child happy. But if a school leaves your child or your family with crushing debt, that quote unquote good school might not be good at all. Or that this is the one that they really want, they might need to find something that might make them equally happy. I know that UNCW has been such a great fit for my oldest that my middle also is very interested in going there because I think he's seen what a good vibe it is, and he's seen how much Tobias loves it and how great the fit has been and how nice the balance is between being independent and yet being near home for when he needs. And I just think he likes the overall culture there. But my daughter, of course, we were there the other day and she's like, I don't like it here. She's like, I don't want to go to UNCW. And I'm like, that's fine, but you're going to go to school in state. And she's like, "Ugh, well, that limits my choices then, doesn't it?" I'm like, well, there are 17 schools in the UNC system. So I think that you will find something. So, that's if she all of a sudden came out with that she wants to go somewhere in South Carolina, it's like, well, those are great schools, but you can get just as good of a school and have just as great of an education and be just as happy. And it costs me in state tuition in North Carolina. So I think you're going to stay in North Carolina. There are plenty of choices. So, I think that a lot of times families put themselves into a financial burden, like a crushing burden that they really don't need to. There are many affordable colleges that can launch students into strong careers. If you can afford that and you want to, then by all means go for it. But if you recognize that there are other schools that can fulfill all of the needs that are there, then don't let the name blind you to the cost. Number 6, program strength in their area of interest. Forget that overall ranking. Look instead at the strength of the department or of the program that your child cares about, because that is not necessarily the same as the institution itself. Are there professors there who are doing interesting work in your child's area of interest? Are there courses in that area of interest that excite them? Are there alumni who are out there succeeding in the field that they're interested in? Because that matters far more than the rank of the university overall. So, beyond academics, beyond prestige, the real practical things that families need to think about when deciding whether a school is a good fit. Okay, I've got another list here. First of all, distance. I'm all about the list today, but this is a total list topic. Total list topic. Distance from home. How far is it? Do they want to come home on the weekends? Will you want to visit for games, performances, parents' weekend, other events, just to drop in and say hi? Because independence feels different when it's a 2-hour drive versus a cross-country flight. Size of the student body. Do they want the energy and anonymity of tens of thousands of students, or the closeness of a few thousand where everyone knows each other? The overall vibe. Walk the campus. Are students engaged? Are they happy? Does it feel welcoming, or does it feel really cutthroat and cold? Research focus. Is it an R1 institution, a research-heavy institution where teaching assistants often lead classes? Or is it a teaching-focused school where undergrads work more directly with their professors? The social culture. Is Greek life predominant? Does your child want that? What about other social outlets? Athletics, service orgs, arts. Is the only thing to do on the weekends drink? Proximity to a city. Is there easy access to internships, to jobs, concerts, culture? Or is it rural, where most life revolves around the campus itself? Is it a residential campus or a commuter campus? Do most students stay on the weekends, or does the campus empty out? Will your child find a strong peer community? Will they feel isolated? Lifestyle fit, the climate, the food, the recreation, the safety, all the little things that shape their actual daily life. Could your child imagine calling this place their home for the next 4 years? These factors, they rarely show up in a ranking, but they are the things that your child will live with every single day. Now, as a bit of an aside, what happens when things don't go as planned? Because there is something else that is really worth saying, because it doesn't get talked about enough. What happens when those college acceptances start coming in and things don't go the way that you hoped they would? Because no matter how many lists you make, how many campus visits you take, how many carefully crafted essays that your child writes, sometimes it just doesn't unfold the way that you pictured it. Maybe they don't get into that school that they dreamed of. Maybe they change their mind about their major 3 different times, or maybe they choose a path that you never imagined, or one maybe that you didn't want for them. All of that can be hard. I know that I did an episode, it must be about a year and a half ago, called What About Prom? Where I talked about the canonical stories that we carry around as parents, the way that we imagine it's all supposed to go. They will go to prom, they'll graduate, they'll go to college, they'll study this major, they'll take that career path. And sometimes, though, our kids, they don't get the memo. They don't follow that script. Or maybe life just doesn't follow that script. And when that happens, it is totally natural to feel disappointment, to feel fear, or maybe even grief, because the story that you had in your head, that one that you have been holding on to since they were babies, it doesn't match the reality that you find yourself living in. But the thing is, our stories aren't the only stories, and they're often not the most important ones. Part of our work as parents, especially at this stage, is to let go of our version of how it is supposed to go, because we need to support our kids in writing their version of the story. And that doesn't mean that we don't guide them. It doesn't mean that we don't worry about practical realities like finances or job prospects. But it does mean that we resist the urge to hold them hostage to the scripts that we wrote. Because when we are able to loosen our grip on that, and when we can just kind of take that step back and say, okay, this isn't the story that I expected, but it is your life to live. That is when they can grow. And that's when they can build resilience. That's when they become the young adults that they are meant to be. And sometimes in hindsight, those detours, the school that maybe wasn't their first choice or second choice, or the major that they changed to that seems like it was on a whim, the opportunity that came up out of nowhere, the unexpected bump in the road. Maybe those, they oftentimes become the best parts of the story. So, if things don't go as planned, just take a breath. Remind yourself this isn't the end of the story. It is just turning the page to a different chapter. And your role, it isn't to write that chapter for them. It is to walk alongside them while they figure it out. Sometimes it will go well, and other times it might not. But the thing is that your job as a parent is to be there with them as they figure it out along the way. And let's get back to our list, because our original list, our myth list, because I kind of digressed there a little bit. Number 4. Gen Ed classes are a waste of time. And that is one that students in general, parents totally love to complain about. These Gen Eds are a waste of time. They're a waste of money. Maybe you've heard your child say it. Maybe you've even thought yourself, like, why does my kid need to take philosophy if they're going to be an accountant? Or why does an engineer need to take a literature class? Why does a nurse need this history requirement, right? Why do we need a foreign language requirement? I get it. I get the frustration. Gen Eds can feel like they are just busy work or they're hoops to jump through. But you know what? In my opinion, I think that they're one of the most valuable parts of college. Gen Eds, they spark discovery. Many students actually find their passion through a Gen Ed requirement. Maybe they're engineers who take sociology and realize that they want to switch fields. Of course, then you as a parent are probably like, oh my God, sociology, what are you going to do with that degree? Biology majors who take a creative writing class and discover that they actually have a gift for storytelling. Students who stumble into an intro to comm class or a public speaking class and end up thriving in my department. Without Gen Ed classes, a lot of doors would never even have been open. And these classes, they build adaptability because the world is changing so quickly. Jobs that we know, they disappear. and jobs that we never even imagined emerge. The people who are able to thrive are those who can connect ideas across discipline. Those people who can see how history shapes politics or how ethics matters in science, how art and technology intersect. And Gen Eds gives students that breadth of knowledge, courses and content that make them more adaptable. They have a shared foundation. They make more informed citizens. Gen Eds make thoughtful voters. They create empathetic neighbors. They widen our kids' lens beyond their own major and break them out of their own bubble. We live in a world that feels increasingly divided. I mean, it doesn't just feel increasingly divided, for God's sake. It is incredibly divided. And having a broad perspective is not just a luxury, it is not an extra. Expanding our worldview is a necessity. And Gen Eds, they create that cultural literacy. It's what turns training into education. Without it, college would be a job training. But with it is what we want out of college, to become a place for our kids to grow as thinkers, as citizens, as human beings. So the next time that you hear someone complain about general education requirements, instead of being like, yeah, they're dumb, instead, maybe, you'll never know what you discover. That one class that you don't think you'll like, it might change the way that you see the world. And that is not a bad thing. Gen Eds are totally not a waste. They are actually the glue that makes higher education higher education. So now, underneath these false ideas, these misleading concepts, these myths, underneath every single one of those is the same false idea, that same fallacy that college is job training. But if you take nothing else from this episode, I hope you understand that college is education. Job training teaches you how to do a task. Education is supposed to teach you how to think, how to adapt, how to connect ideas, and how to grow. Job training prepares you specifically for one job, but the overall education prepares you for a lifetime. And that is what those of us who want our kids to go into. So before we're done here, I thought I could round it out with one more list. I think this is like list number 4. I think it's like list number 4 for this episode. So anyways, one more list, but this one is tips for us because I thought that it would make it a little bit easier if we had some tips to get through this season of life with our teens. Number 1, redefine good. Stop using the word good to mean prestigious. Use it to mean good fit. Where will my child thrive? Number 2, watch your language. And I don't mean the F word because that one's fine. The words instead that I'm talking about are things like, instead of that's a useless class, instead, that might teach you something unexpected. Instead of you need something profitable. Instead, you need something that's going to build strong skills and excite you. Number 3, resist projection. That means projecting our wants and our needs and our path. Your child's path might not look like yours, and that is okay. It is not about putting the sticker on your car that you want. It is about their growth. Number 4, focus on skills, not just on salaries. Encourage them to think about the skills that they will build. Is it communication? Is it critical thinking? Is it problem solving? Is it adaptability? Because in the long term, these are the real currency of the current job market. Number 5, keep perspective. College applications feel high stakes, and they are high stakes, but there are many paths to success. Rejections that may come are not the end of the world. Acceptances aren't golden tickets. Number 6, be the calm voice. Your child is going to mirror your stress. If you become frantic, they will feel frantic. If you are grounded, they'll feel grounded. They'll feel reassured. They will feel that you are their anchor in all of this. Number 7, celebrate their effort. Don't just celebrate the outcome, the acceptances, the scholarships. Celebrate the effort it takes to write the essays, to meet the deadlines, to dream about the future, because those efforts themselves are growth. And number 8, going to college is not enlisting in the military. They can leave if they're unhappy. They're not stuck there forever. If they get a semester in and realize, I was wrong, this wasn't a good fit, then you know what? They can apply elsewhere and they can move on. It doesn't need to be forever. And so leave yourself room for flexibility if that does come up. At the end of the day, higher ed is not about finding the right major or the right minor or the right school or the right set of courses. It is about helping our kids grow into people who can think and adapt and contribute meaningfully to the world. So, as you are walking your child through applications, whether it's in the next month or two, or in the next 5 years, or if you are helping them choose their major now through figuring out their path, I hope you will hold on to this. Success, it isn't about prestige or paychecks or perfection. It's about fit. It's about growth. It's about becoming their favorite, happiest version of themselves. And that is not a job title. It is not a ranking. It is not a salary chart. It is the real return on investment of higher education. And it's what we want for our children. Thank you so much for listening today and always. I do want to give just a little teeny tiny plug, a reminder that my book, Reframe the Moment, is available now on Amazon. It is a fantastic book for reflection and clarity and rediscovery. It has some self-development activities and a whole lot of Zen-like reflections. And on Wednesdays, tune in because I am doing readings and responses to the chapters so that you can kind of get a taste of them and know what you're in for with the book. Now, beginning this month, those reflections are going to move. This is so exciting. Drum roll. That's not a drum roll at all, but they're going to move over to a brand new show. And that show is going to be specifically focused on growth and self-development, on matrenaissance, on this midlife reframing journey that so many of us are on here. I really think that you're going to love it. And I know that I am super excited to develop it. It's going to be subscription only. So I guess we all can feel super exclusive. It's like giving VIP vibes. So you can go on over to the Reframing Circle and subscribe now. And it's all coming up. So exciting. Find me on socials. It's Reframing Me everywhere on Instagram, TikTok, and the old Facebook. If you are not already following me, what are you doing with your life? I think you should. Until next time, be well and communicate.